I'm not a fool, Pliskin.
Call me Snake.
S.D. Pliskin. American, Lieutenant, Special Forces Unit Black Light. 2 Purple Hearts, Leningrad and Siberia. Youngest man to be decorated by the President. You robbed the Federal Reserve Depository. Life sentence, New York Maximum Security Penitentiary. I'm ready to kick your ass out of the world, war hero.
Who are you?
Hauk. Police Commissioner.
Bob Hauk.
Special Forces Unit Texas Thunder. We heard of you too, Pliskin.
Why are we talking?
Have a deal for you. You receive full pardon for every criminal action you've committed in the United States. It was an accident. About an hour ago, a small jet went down inside New York City. The president was on board.
President of what?
That's not funny, Pliskin. You go in, find the president, bring him out in 24 hours, and you're a free man.
24 hours, huh?
I'm making you an offer.
Bullshit.
Straight, just like I said.
I'll think about it.
No time. Give me an answer.
Get a new president.
We're still at war, Pliskin. We need him alive.
I don't give a fuck about your war. Or your president.
Is that your answer?
I'm thinking about it.
Think hard.
Why me?
You flew the Gulf Fire over Leningrad. You know how to get in quiet. You're all I've got.
I guess I go in when doesn't mean shit to me. Give me the paper.
When you come out.
Before.
Told you I wasn't a fool.
Call me Snake.
Welcome back, Adrenalheads. I'm Frank.
And I'm Mark.
Today we're going to be covering Escape from New York from 1981, directed by the great John Carpenter, produced by Deborah Hill and Larry Franco, written by John Carpenter and Nick Castle, who also played The Shape in Halloween, so you might know him. And our music was by John Carpenter and Alan Howard. So big surprise there.
Exactly.
And the tagline for this movie was, "The world's greatest leader is a hostage in the most dangerous place on earth. Now only the deadliest man alive can save him." Movie budget? The movie budget was $6 million, okay, but it made $25.2 million at the box office, and this is back in 81.
Yeah.
So that's actually a pretty good take.
Yeah, it's really a really good number amount. So this wouldn't necessarily be a box office bomb like a lot of movies are, and a lot of people.
It ain't no Waterworld, that's for sure.
They always accredit bombs and really classic suspense, horror, and thriller films with John Carpenter all at the same time.
Right.
But this one itself is not. This one did very well in the theater and became a classic as well. And I think that's why he was able to get The Thing, which did bomb. And later on,
at first,
had wound up eventually becoming a classic that everybody loves in media, because it took off with VHS rentals and release and sales.
Playing on HBO,
all the cable companies, streaming events. Now you have kids now this day, and that's lived on. We've covered that. Jerry Gomez and I have covered that here on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. So for those of you, go check out The Thing that we cover too, since it's Halloween month.
Yeah, exactly. It's Halloween. It's coming up. Also, if anybody's into like the reaction YouTubers, it's pretty much a rite of passage to do The Thing. So,
yeah. Don't put your 5-year-old child in front of the TV and play that movie. No. Unless they're a really sick individual themselves, little kid.
Hey, sometimes, I mean, I think I was about I think it was 12. Yeah. 12 or 13. I don't know.
Yeah. But this is also a movie. It's funny too, because you look at this particular movie itself, it's rated R.
Yeah.
but it doesn't feel rated R to today's standards.
You know what? You're right, because they're like when you said that, I was like, well, they really only had the choices at that time of PG or R.
Correct.
And realistically, they're going to be like, you know what? We're not going to go with PG on this one. Things happen. So
yeah,
they're going to go ahead and they're going to have it as an R.
Yeah. And I think the whole point behind it at the time, listeners, you guys know that I don't read ahead to the interesting and unknown facts. I copy, I paste, I get it from reputable sources. I just throw it in there. And then we get there. I get surprised sometimes. And then sometimes I know too much because I love the films that we're covering too. And I wind up going, we already mentioned that, but okay. But the cool thing about this is that, it's rated R. It's a rated R film, right, Frank? So you got Disney kid himself.
Yes.
Kurt Russell.
And that's the thing that a lot of people forget. The computer that wore tennis shoes.
Yeah.
Okay. Kurt Russell, Disney darling for many years as a kid and even into a teenager and things like that.
Yeah.
He had to pull himself away from that and do this type of movie. And ever since then, he's never really had the closest thing he's had to like maybe a family film is Overboard.
Later on, years later.
Many years later.
Yeah, it was with his not wife, Goldie Hawn.
Yeah, exactly.
They live in sin, everybody. No, I'm just kidding. No, they're life partners. If you think about it, they've lived.
Right.
If anything, nowadays it's all common law marriage anyway, so they're on each other's taxes.
They were ahead of it.
They're way ahead of it. But honestly, they make their relationship work, and they have kids, and
right.
Obviously, and Kurt Russell is a legacy actor, in my opinion. One of my hugest man crushes as a kid till even present day. Come on, he's Santa Claus now. And we're probably going to get another Santa Claus movie from him too, which would be awesome. And we'll be seeing him in Monarch too. Oh, forgot that. I'm sorry, you Godzilla fans and Kaiju fans out there. Monarch coming out on Apple TV Plus. And I look forward to that because it's him and Wyatt.
And Wyatt. I was just going to say it's him and Wyatt.
Playing the same character in two different times.
Right.
And it's amazing.
Which is awesome because he does look enough like him to
now he does. Earlier on he didn't in his career, but now Wyatt does.
Right.
And I'm glad to say I'm looking forward to seeing more of Wyatt Russell in the MCU, something all you Panels to Pixels fans will know, and we cover there as well. So at the time that we're covering this, not to stray off too much and digress, is the night that Loki season 2 comes out. So if you guys want to know, we'll be watching that probably independently after we record this.
There's so much stuff this weekend that I want to watch. It's not even funny. So.
Oh, same here. I have to catch up with so much, but we'll be covering that on Panels to Pixels, and but that we'll leave that stuff till the end, everybody.
Right.
But to continue on with this show, particularly Mr. Rodriguez.
And before we get too far into it, this is not a spoiler-free podcast. Okay. We are going to get into scenes, things that happen in the movie, like in detail. So if you haven't seen the movie, you know what? Shut us off for now. Come back. And after you've seen the movie, enjoy it, so that you can sit there and go, oh yeah, that was a good scene. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So stop the podcast now. Go watch the movie, come back, or unless you like to be spoiled and you love to know what the hell you're getting into, fine, so be it. Then, continue on. Sally forth.
You spoiled the entire movie for me. Okay, we warned you.
Well, I got that years ago on a Panels to Pixels podcast episode, and we said spoiler full. We have it in our notes, and the person was really upset, and I'm sorry for that, but from now on, that was always something we always say, it's spoiler full. But let's continue.
let's talk about this synopsis. So, in 1997, a major war between the United States and the Soviet Union is concluding, and the entire island of Manhattan has been converted into a giant maximum security prison. When Air Force One is hijacked and crashes into the island, the president, Donald Pleasance, is taken hostage by a group of inmates. Snake Plissken, Kurt Russell, former Special Forces soldier turned criminal, is recruited to retrieve the president in exchange for his own freedom. We're getting into the people who we might know. We just now mentioned Kurt Russell. He is playing Snake Plissken. He is the ultimate badass. We've covered other films here on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast that Mr. Russell's been in and listed before in our coverage of The Thing and Big Trouble in Little China. But here are a couple of that we recommend. Tango and Cash, along with Sylvester Stallone in that one.
Yep.
Overboard, we talked about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's with Goldie Hawn, and that's kind of a cute movie. He can be seen along with his son Wyatt Russell, both playing the same character in different times in the Apple Plus Godzilla show Monarch that Mark was just talking about, Legacy of Monsters.
Yep.
We have Donald Pleasance.
Yep, Donald Pleasance, who plays the president. Another actor that is not new to this podcast when we cover films. You can listen to our episode, John Carpenter's The Prince of Darkness review, to get more from his list. Obviously, Frank was on that one, so you'll remember Frank. But for now, we will mention the Halloween series, which we've mentioned before. You Only Live Twice in 1967 with Sean Connery, a James Bond movie, isn't it?
Yep.
And,
sure is.
And Land of the Minotaur from 1976, just to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's great, especially the James Bond one, because he's playing Blofeld in that one.
Yeah.
Who is like the main, the boss of Spectre and stuff like that.
The villain.
Yeah. Lee Van Cleef, he's playing Hauk.
Mm-hmm.
He appeared in over 170 films and television roles in his career spanning nearly 40 years, but is best known as a star of the Italian spaghetti westerns, particularly Sergio Leone directed Dollars trilogy, For a Few Dollars More, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yep.
And I will also mention that he was the master, the ninja on the television show The Master. He was
true.
Sensei.
Yep, you are correct, sir. All right, glad you added that in. Next up would be Miss Adrienne Barbeau, who plays Maggie. Adrienne Jo Barbeau is an American actress, singer, and author of 3 books. She came to prominence in 1970s as a Broadway's original Rizzo in the musical Grease, and as Carol Trainer, the divorced daughter of Maude Findlay on the sitcom Maude. She can also be seen in movies like The Fog in 1980, something we will get back to, ladies and gentlemen that are listening. The Cannonball Run from 1981. I remember that. She was sexy in that.
Yeah.
If you like racing movies with comedy. Swamp Thing in 1982, which is a Wes Craven movie based upon a DC comic. And yes, panelers, we will get to that eventually. We haven't not covered it, but that's something to go back to the vault for. And Creepshow from 1982. And a woman I got to meet and get a picture with and talk to, as well as an ex-wife of John Carpenter.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that Creepshow is one of the things that she did, because I think that the portion that she was in a Creepshow was like the best story there. The box. So, great. All right, moving on. Harry Dean Stanton played Brain. He's an American actor, musician, and singer in a career that spanned more than 6 decades. Stanton played supporting roles in films including Cool Hand Luke, 1967, Kelly's Heroes, 1970, Dillinger, 1973, Godfather Part 2 in 1974, Alien in 1979, Christine, 1983, which is also a John Carpenter film.
Yep.
Repo Man in 1984, Pretty in Pink, 1986, The Last Temptation of Christ in 1988, Wild at Heart in 1990, The Green Mile, 1999, The Man Who Cried in 2000, Alpha Dog in 2006, and Inland Empire was also in 2006. He had rare lead roles in Paris, Texas, and in Lucky, 2017.
He made an appearance in Marvel's The Avengers too, for you panelers out there. He's the one.
He was the security guard.
Yeah, he's a security guard that finds Banner naked. He's naked.
Pretty much,
rubble,
yeah.
in the rubble. He goes, "Son, you have a condition." So everybody who knows 70s, 80s, even 90s, even all the way current before his passing years ago. I think he passed away.
Fortunately.
So he is a standpoint, and it's just his stoic look, his delivery, it's dry. We have covered Alien 1979 with Wendy and I, and Kelly, I think, as well. So, but there's a bunch here, movies wise, in his credo and list that we will probably do eventually. But he was a man that did have a long career.
Oh yeah, and deservedly so.
Oh, definitely. Another man that has a long career
and exactly. Almost
led a long ass life as well. Mr. Ernest Borgnine played Cabby. So he was an American actor whose career spanned over 6 decades as well. He was noted for his gruff but relaxed voice and gap-toothed Cheshire cat grin. A popular performer, he also appeared in movies such as The Dirty Dozen in 1967. That's a great Army film. I love that. My father used to make me watch stuff like that, and I do agree. As a kid, I hated it, but I grew to love it as I got older.
I love it so much, I own it on DVD.
Awesome. You got The Wild Bunch in 1969. Something that I love and has been covered on a friend's podcast on, I'm not sure if they actually did it, but you could check it out and tell me if I lied. And if not, Daphne will yell at me and Paik. The Poseidon Adventure was amazing in the 70s and the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
That was an awesome film, and I remember that because it gave me chills. But check them out. They do that. I believe they did that on Run for Your Lives, but please correct me. And Daphne and Paik, if you're listening, please just retort back. Gen Xers will remember Ernest from the TV show Airwolf that ran from 1984 to 1987 as well, which was basically a ripoff of Blue Thunder, which they actually had
Michael Vincent in there as well.
Yeah, I know. And they, I forgot to mention Jen Michael Vincent was an Airwolf as well. Yeah, actually, that's, I think, what launched a lot of his career in the early 80s that people remember. But eventually we'll do Blue Thunder,
Roy
Scheider. With Roy Scheider and Malcolm McDowell.
Malcolm McDowell is in that as well, and so is
Home Alone.
Right, yes. He was Jacko. Chud, yes. Daniel
Stern.
Yeah.
Was it Daniel Stern?
No, wait. You might be right.
I don't know, but somebody out there will correct us. And that's what feedback's for, too, people. We're doing that off the cuff right there. But I have a love for Blue Thunder. So
me too.
I will be following your leader right now, Frank. So what's the next one?
Next one is the iconic Isaac Hayes, who played the Duke of New York. Yep. Isaac Lee Hayes Jr. was an American singer, songwriter, actor, and composer. He was one of the creative forces behind Southern soul music label Stax Records, serving as both an in-house songwriter and as a session musician, record producer, teaming with his partner David Porter during the mid-1960s. An interesting thing about him is, if you've ever watched Shaft, or even I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, if you've seen I'm Gonna Get You Sucker.
Oh, I love that movie.
His theme from Shaft plays in both of those movies.
Mhm.
And it's some of the coolest music you're ever going to hear, that theme, because it's just so badass.
It is badass. And he's a badass. That's why he's the Duke of New
He is.
York.
That's right. You are the Duke of New York.
We will be getting into that more some later,
Yes,
people.
yes.
All right. Next up would be, well, we all know this man. We've seen his name in a
Yes.
lot of horror movies, action movies. He's got a staple. A friend of the show, Sean Clark, knows him, interviewed him, and has done site locations with him. Mr. Tom Atkins, who plays Remy. He's an American actor. He's known for his work in horror and thrill films and genres, having worked with writers and directors such as Shane Black, William Peter Blatty, John Carpenter, of course, Fred Decker, Richard Donner, the late great Richard Donner, Stephen King, and George A. Romero.
Yep.
He's also a familiar face to mainstream viewers, often playing police officers and tough authorities figures, and was best known for his role as Lieutenant Alex Deal in the Rockford Files that ran from 1974 to 1977.
Yep.
Atkins has appeared in numerous films, including The Fog, we already mentioned that, The Ninth Configuration, 1980, Creepshow, 1982, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, 1982 as well, and I believe Damien and Jamie have covered that on Watched It in the 80s that you can find here on Pyrocore Entertainment. So check that out. Please give Damien a nudge for us too, because we want to hear more of his podcast. One of my favorite movies out there that a lot of people hate, Night of the Creeps from 1986.
Oh, that's a fantastic movie. Anybody who wants to say Night of the Creeps isn't a good movie, come see me. I'm just kidding.
I love that movie, and it's like,
Thrill me.
Oh, I pick up the phone, and when I do that, people don't get it, and then some people who are horror fans know it. They're like, "You suck." Or if I go, "Hey, this is Mark. Do what you got to do. Adios." That's like straight out of Nightbreed, from Boone.
Right.
All right, next up, I'm like digressing. He was also in Lethal Weapon 1987, Maniac Cop with Bruce Campbell.
1988, yeah.
And I forgot something Zadar, and I met the man too.
Robert
Zadar.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I actually met that man.
That chin.
That well, if chins could kill, both Bruce Campbell and Robert Zadar could do it.
Exactly.
Two Evil Eyes in 1990, Bob Roberts 1992, Striking Distance 1993, My Bloody Valentine 3D from 2009. I actually own that movie. And it was okay.
It's not a bad remake.
Not a bad remake.
Yeah.
Drive Angry in 2011. That was okay too. I like that. Encounter 2018. Trick in 2019. And the science, it's I kind of copy pasted this from Wiki a little bit, but and the science fiction short film Polybius. 2020, where he portrays the role of Sheriff Atkins. Not the diet plan, by the way. And if Mr. Atkins, you're listening, please don't take offense to that. I was just making a bad joke.
Yes, because I do still think he can kick both our asses.
Yes, he can. Definitely.
We also have Ox Baker, who played Slag. Douglas Albert Baker Sr. was an American professional wrestler and actor, better known professionally as Ox Baker. He was famous for his distinctive eyebrows and finishing move, the Heart Punch, sometimes called the Hurt Punch, after Baker's famous catchphrases, "I love to hurt people." Ox was picked specifically for his height, his size, and him being a professional wrestler for the film.
Yep. That battle to the death.
Oh, yeah. You got a little bat love there.
Well, he was a huge dude, and he was tall.
Yeah.
He made Kurt Russell shrink. All right, next up would be Frank Doubleday, who played Romero. He was an American actor whose notable roles were as film villains, basically. Doubleday is known for his films including John Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13 in 1976, and, of course, this particular film in 1981. in the latter of which he played the character of Romero. In the special edition Escape from New York DVD documentary or commentary, Russell credits Doubleday's performance as setting the tone for the movie, which he does.
Yes, he does.
He's got that psycho punk rock look with his hair moosed up with his chiseled look and chin, jaw, and his eye sockets bulge out.
Right.
And his death scene is very interesting too, but obviously spoilers, but
exactly,
it's pretty cool.
We did just recently do another podcast where we were picking like the best action scenes and like the best kills. Yeah. And I chose the kill from him in Assault on Precinct 13 where he shoots it, mainly because he just does it out of nowhere. Little girl goes up to an ice cream truck and he just shoots her like right there. Like, and that's back in the days when you didn't kill kids in movies.
Yep. He killed the girl from Escape from Witch Mountain.
Escape from Witch Mountain, yeah. Kim Richards, yeah. Honorable mentions for voiceovers. We actually had the voice of Jamie Lee Curtis. She actually narrated the beginning of the movie, informing us about what happened to society and what became of New York.
Mm.
And then we also have Deborah Hill, who actually was the producer of the film, played the computer voice in the movie.
Yep. Pretty cool, huh?
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, and it's funny too because it was one of those things where if you get all right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let you know now. There's a 4K Blu-ray release, UHD, that's out on the market now. Just came out about 2 weeks ago, actually. Go get it. It's out there. If you got a 4K Blu-ray player, really cool OLED, or even a projector screen. Who knows? Everybody out there. Right. I do installations for home theater work in people's homes, and everybody goes, "Hey, what's your idea?" Well, they kind of redid the music, and they kind of remastered certain things. Maybe that's a good way to present to somebody some awesome theater, even though it's a classic. But you get that feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they have commentaries from John Carpenter as well as Kurt Russell during it. Some of the commentary is old, yes, but it still works today and what they're talking about. And they talk about Jamie Lee Curtis being on there. They talk about Deborah Hill being on there. They talk about all the individual actors. So check it out. Do that. I currently own it on DVD, Blu-ray, and iTunes. And I'll probably get it on 4K Blu-ray. Who knows? Because I've bought this
now that you said it, I'm probably going to do it.
Yeah, dude. I think there's like certain movies that I've bought multiple times. Yeah. I think to digress a little bit, and you'll laugh because this floats into panels to pixels a little bit. When we got our first VHS player in the house, guess what movie was the testing movie?
Was it Escape from New York?
No. Flash Gordon with Sam J. Jones.
Yes.
You know how many times I bought Flash Gordon in every media? I think I bought it in almost every media except for 4K Blu-ray.
I've got it in a few different ones. If it wasn't for the fact that I've got stuff all over this room, I'd be tempted to pull it out. But hey.
Yeah, exactly. But I actually mentioned that to Mr. Jones himself, and he laughed. He goes, "What is it?" I said, "I don't know. Maybe it's about the movie, but I just don't want it to die, so I have to have it on every media."
No, you know what, man? That's another one of those movies that it's a great movie, and if anybody can't see the genius of it, then okay, cool. But it's a great movie.
Yeah. All right, so we're on to our next topic, which is
general thoughts.
All right. So for you listeners out there, these are general thoughts of the movie, how we feel about it when we first saw it, what we think of it today, and does it still hold up, and would we recommend it to other people? So, Frank, you're leading away. What were your thoughts?
So the first time I ever saw this movie, it was on HBO. I remember that. And I remember just being like, oh, it's called Escape from New York. This is going to be awesome. I didn't know just how awesome it was going to be. But I will tell you when I was hooked. Okay, because it starts off with him, being brought to, the Liberty Island prison basically for processing, and they, say, "Hey, well, you know that the person's plane has gone down." You're at that point, you're like, "All right, cool, the plane went down, whatever."
Yeah.
It's like, cool. So they bring him into the room to show him the weapons that he's going to get to do this mission.
Okay.
And that's when I'm hooked. Because when you're looking across this table, just
look at the
full of like
toys.
Mac 10 with a silencer, with a freaking scope, stars, ninja stars. It was like this toy store to me because I love and it might have been what got me into collecting knives.
Wow.
Just the idea of a table full of like knives and weapons and things like that. That was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I think it might have started the trope of like these preparation scenes where they're like, "Okay, now you got to pull out this gun. Now you got to put that in its holster." And yeah.
So Boondock
That was when I was
Saints
hooked.
basically stole everything from this, you're saying?
Hey, there's a lot of things
I
that
need a bit of rope.
were paid homage to. Let's be nice and say paid homage to.
That is true.
In,
There is. That is true.
But yeah, that was when I was hooked. And from that point on, you couldn't tear me away from this television. I was just like, all right, he's already the coolest person on earth because he's walking around with an eye patch and he's not a pirate. He's walking around with an eye patch and
I
he's
still
making it look
want a
cool.
history of that. How
And
did he
not
lose
only
his
that, but-
eye?
Not only that, but he's got those freaking pants on with that camo that you've never ever seen. Like, it's like,
Back then, we never saw camo like that. We
yeah,
always
and
saw
I was like, holy
green and
crap.
black.
And then those boots with the like metal pieces on the front of them and stuff.
Yep.
Ah, man, yeah. It was just like, from that point on, I'm there watching it. I was all the way there till the end. And I think that the ending, which we'll get into later, is awesome. It's a great ending to this movie. And it also plays into the later sequel, Escape from LA. So,
Yeah, it definitely does. Would this be a movie that you would recommend to somebody, or have you recommended it to other people?
I've recommended Escape to New York so many times that I should get royalties. No, I'm kidding.
All right, Mr. Carpenter, you heard it here.
No, I'm only kidding.
I know.
But no,
I really love your
as
music,
far
by
as
the way.
as far as recommending it to people, if anybody ever says to me at any point that they've never seen Escape from New York, that's right then and there. I'm like, look, find it however you can find it,
Okay.
streaming or whatever, or buy it to see it, but see this movie. Yeah.
Awesome.
What are your thoughts on it?
For me? Oh, I love this ever since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is something that me and my brother kind of grew up on. There was certain specific movies that came on because we didn't have cable or anything like HBO back when I was really younger. I think I was like, this came out in 81.
Right.
So in 81, I was 9.
like 11.
I was 9. So by the time I got to see it, was on TV. So I would say about 82, 83.
Yeah.
Within that time, because usually they would just like give it a year and a half before they actually put it on regular TV and you get commercials. So I wound up watching this in the afternoon, or like Sunday afternoons in New York. They used to have it on Channel 11 or Channel 9, which is broadcasted from
Channel
Jersey, or even 5, if we all remember that. Those
like
of us
back in the day.
Yeah, well, Frank knows this because he was one of those like me that lived within the 5 boroughs, and they would play that in the afternoon or something like that, even on a Saturday too, or even at night, depending on, because you had the cool stuff like Smokey and the Bandit.
Right.
This falls into those movies, like for me, like The Warriors. It's another phenomenal kind of dated kind of movie within this time, but it works out and it just sticks with you. And you've watched it over and over and over again. It shows up at least 3 to 4 times a year on those days. And you watch them because you're going to watch them as a kid. And even though there's commercial and it's kind of dumbed down for TV, and by the time you get a VHS player, you wind up recording it and just watch it over and over again anyway.
Yeah.
This was something which was a staple between my buddy Jared DeMol and I would do, because by the time we got into a band and I was playing in an Iron Maiden cover band with him and a couple other things, we would get together and we'd do movie night. And this was one movie that we tried to introduce to a friend of ours, our friend Tatiana Bohr. She came over and she comes over to my house. She goes, "What are we watching? What did you drag me to?" "Oh, well, we got our Fosters. So we got our oil cans of Fosters because we have to have a drinking night. So we got like 4 cans each of all things too. 4 oil cans.
Fosters are not like a regular size drink.
It's a pint. It's a pint. So we would get that. We would get chips, whatever, and maybe ice cream too, because beer and ice cream. I don't know,
right.
But I have made a beer float in my time. But we would watch that, and then I tried to influence her into watching that. She just said, "This is the stupidest movie." I was like, "Go away, leave now, go home." She wasn't drinking, but go away. But it was something that we just loved, and from our childhood that lasted into our adulthood and still does. We talk about it. And we use references from the movie. And so it's something that we hold dear because it's something that we grew up with. And I like I said, I reference this movie like The Warriors, Eddie and the Cruisers, stuff like that, that were always a staple in that afternoon, Sunday afternoon or Saturday afternoon, or even late evening, and multi showings during the year. And it's something that you would just do. And you just love the character. And that's what attracted to me of the character. He was like an anti-hero. He was there to kick ass and take names and just to do for his own. He was a mercenary. So you got the Merc with the mouth, which is a short mouth at that time too, because he was very short in what he had to say. My friends call me Snake. He got the eye patch. I really still to this day want to know how he got that eye patch. So, Mr. Carpenter, if you're out there, I know you're not retired. Get Wyatt to play Snake.
Yes.
As a younger Snake, and we find out how he loses his eye and gets into this, and how he's taken out of the military and becomes a mercenary. So, just a little bit there.
That'd be awesome.
We'll be tagging you on your Instagram and Twitter and all that cool stuff. So if you hear this, I'm pleading with you, give us a movie with Wyatt Russell as Snake Plissken. And you could do a fast forward to an adult, older Snake Plissken with Kurt. And it would work. Anyhow, I grew up with this. Obviously, I have a love for it, and I love everything about him. His eye patch, his feathered hair. And funny enough, I looked like that when I was in a band. I had hair that length. My hair was feathered like that. Yes, I'm bald, everybody now. But back then, I had that kind of hair parted in the middle and whatever. If I put an eye patch on back then, I probably would look like a shorter version of Kurt Russell with blonde hair. But needless to say, I don't look like that now. I loved his tattoo on his gut of a cobra.
Right.
That was kick-ass. The boots that he wore and that gray camo that you never saw before until you saw like a G.I. Joe episode on cartoons. And then the jacket. I always wanted that bomber style kind of leather jacket that he had. And it just like showed, I don't know, testosterone, cool dude look. I want to be that guy.
That look is so iconic that if you watch another John Carpenter film, Ghosts of Mars,
yes,
Desolation Williams is pretty much wearing the same
jacket. Yeah, pretty much. And of all things, James Woods and Vampires.
Yes.
So that's another cheap plug.
Another
too.
really great.
That's another movie that's underrated that a lot of people don't appreciate. I do appreciate
criminally underrated.
Yeah, I saw that in the theater.
I didn't actually. I saw it on HBO on cable. I don't even remember which channel.
Ghosts of Mars. I didn't see in the theater, but I I got it as soon as it came out on DVD. But
Yeah.
Vampires, when it came out on its initial release, I think I didn't have a job at that time, so I was going to the movies every once in a while. But I did go see that, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that particular film, and
It's awesome.
yes,
That first the kill that he does when he opens the hotel door and he just splits the guy in half. That's the point where you're like, okay, this is going to be a different vampire movie than you've ever seen before,
or
folks.
they go and harpoon and drag them out.
Right? Yeah.
Not to like butter up Mr. Carpenter if he's listening, but these are movies that we love, and obviously you can hear it from our talk. We will get to vampires and those particular movies later on because Frank's your John Carpenter guy, and he'll be back more.
I'm such a huge John Carpenter fan, and I didn't do it on purpose, I swear. But I'm actually wearing right now a Halloween shirt that says right on it John Carpenter's Halloween and has all the movie poster itself. Yeah. So it's one of my favorite t-shirts.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, you guys can't see it. Unfortunately, we don't have video for this, but I could guarantee you, he is wearing that shirt. All right. Well, with this particular movie, just to move on and just to get out of this so we can get into our favorite scenes, I always mention it to other people who never heard of the movie, try to get them into it. Like I said, I tried to get Tanya to do it. Tatiana didn't want to, so get out of here. My brother actually came down during that night too when we were watching, going, "You guys are watching this again?" It's like, shut up, go away, old man.
And I'll bet money he sat down after 5 minutes.
Oh, he did. He did. Yeah. Oh, my brother did, because he loved it too. Honestly, he was just giving us crap as per usual. But that's my brother. He's 4 years older than me, and I love him. But I recommend this, and I usually talk about this with other people, like people that love this kind of genre stuff. And this fits obviously the Adrenaline Cinema podcast motif of what I wanted to talk about, and I'm glad that Frank wanted to come on and talk about it. And I just brought it up to him saying, "Hey, let's do this." So, and keep in mind, listeners, he's going to be the John Carpenter guy now. So when we do another John Carpenter movie, he's going to be there. It will probably have another person tagging along too. But well, let's avoid this, and we digressed a lot. Let's move on to the next topic, which would be
we've got favorite scenes. We had already actually talked the general thoughts about the movie, but this is actually favorite scenes or thoughts about within the movie.
Yeah, this is like the part where we get into deep dives of our favorite moments, scenes, effects, music that captures a scene too, by the way, because we haven't really dabbled more into that music. So
I own that on iTunes.
I have the CD. I have it on Varis Sarabon CD.
I had the vinyl.
Damn you.
I had the vinyl and I loved it to death. And I remember I had it on my windowsill. It might have gotten warped.
Oh, man.
But I didn't care. I was still going to listen to it. I don't know what happened to it now. Because a lot of my stuff is still in the Bronx, but my mom's probably got it somewhere.
I'm sure she does.
She knew it was a prized possession.
All right. Well, you want to start us off with this one?
Unless you want to go.
No, I'm fine. You go ahead.
All right. So we talked a little bit about Romero, and funnily enough, that's one of the things that, granted, as much as I love the movie and I love Snake Plissken and everything like that, Romero always sticks in my head. The first scene with him when he comes out walking like he's some kind of peacock. Right? They're all there with guns and everything. He just walks out like
la-di-da,
shoulders back. It's like, I ain't got a care in the world. Right? And then he's like, touch me. He dies. You're not in here in 30 seconds. He dies. He's just giving him the ultimatums. Like, dude, there's 20 guys pointing guns at you. And you're just like, I'm dictating this right now. You guys are going to do what I'm telling you. Yeah. So I love that scene.
Yeah. And then he shows them a finger.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You got 20 seconds.
He probably still has that finger
Um,
somewhere.
Oh my goodness. There's that. There's so many really good scenes in this one. Like another one that I really love is, first of all, like I said, once I saw the Mac 10 with the freaking silencer on it and
Oh, yeah.
and a scope, I was like, oh, that is the best gun ever.
Oh, yeah.
And that's you couldn't convince me at that time. Granted, now I know for a fact that they're kind of crappy. But
And silencers are not a real thing.
well, silencers not they don't movie silencers don't work the way real silencers do.
Exactly.
Like they quiet things down, but only for a specific amount of time because the baffles start going and it's it starts making more noise. And you can only fit it onto like certain guns. That one is a real silencer that he had though, but whatever. That was that, right? And then when he gets caught by the crazies and he has no other way to get out of this room, like straight up, this cements like the type of guy Snake Plissken is.
Yeah.
He just takes the Mac 10 and makes his own hole in the wall with bullets.
He makes a door.
He makes his own little door, like his own little wall, a door.
Yeah.
I was like, that is the coolest thing I have ever seen. You know what I mean? But that's some of the ones that I think of right off the bat.
Yeah.
There's so many of them. What about you?
With me, obviously in the very beginning, we get the whole deal that with Hulk and how they negotiate, and you could see how cool he is about it. Call me Snake. It's like, that attitude. But then Hulk takes him, goes over the negotiation. Basically, Snake feels like, oh, I'm going to get stuck in there anyway. What the hell? Might as well do it. I could get out at least. But he was like trying to bargain, saying, contract first. No, you don't get that till you get out. That's part of it. Well, all right, fine. I'm going in there anyway. And then he gets to the doctor, and the doctor, they say it's a medical treatment. And then you get these two, which are air injected needles at that point, which is futuristic because we're talking about more of a post-apocalyptic area.
Yes.
Age at this point. New York's a prison. The whole island of Manhattan has a 50-foot high tower or gate that they can't get out of. We've already seen people try to escape and get blown up in the water in the Hudson River. Statue of Liberty is already a lookout tower for all security, which is pretty cool because I like how they segue because this is mostly done in California and Chicago. And literally they are able to do matte shots that sequence in perfectly. So that way you don't skip a beat. And, they had the one sequence of the helicopter flying over into over the Hudson River by the bridge, and you could see Manhattan Island. But the fact that, he does that thing and then he's like, tell him. And then he goes, what did you do to me? And then it's like, you could see Snake come out going, it's like little things. It's like it'll open up your arteries at a certain point after X amount of hours. It'll just, the size of a pinhead, needlehead. That's it. And just explode. And you'll be dead. But we could stop it with X-rays, the doctor says.
Right.
X-rays. Really? A little bit far-fetched, but honestly, back then, X-rays, man, that'll do it. It's like gamma rays now. It's like gamma rays. It's like they're harmless. But, obviously, they made the
No, don't worry about the cancer. It'll be okay.
But it's so wild, though. I was like, to me, it was like it showed the true character that I love because on a heartbeat, he just drops and says, all right, we're going down. We're going to go to fisticuffs. The other is just like him not taking guff from from Hulk as he's flying, and he has to fly on, and he lands right on, of all things, the World Trade Center. Now, mind you, that's a landmark we don't have anymore, but this is a movie that features it, and it's great that we could still see that and love it, even though it's a model. Honestly, it's technically a model, and a lot of the effects, from my understanding, because I've watched this so many times with commentary, they use real scale models, and the way they were able to do the CG, from my understanding, was they put really weird lights and filmed it almost like in black and white and redid it again on like a video format. So it looks like because we didn't have digital effects back then.
Exactly.
So
Right. Everything
the
had
way
to be
the
in camera.
look it had, but the conversation between Hulk and Snake and how they are up there, it was pretty cool, and the badass and how to jury rig and open up the door above, and he's got to walk down 50 flights of freaking of the World Trade Center.
It's one of two post-apocalyptic movies that got it where the World Trade Center makes it past the apocalypse, and the other one is AI, where it's all underwater.
Yeah,
but the Twin Towers is still standing, which it's kind of funny when you watch it now, especially since we know, unfortunately, that's not
with
the case.
all the issues that like 9/11 happened, and we don't have it any longer. But it's so legendary in the sense that it has become cinematic icon itself. Originally, King Kong from the 70s had a poster where Kong was standing on both feet on both buildings.
And also Godzilla versus Megalon. That artwork is on top of the World Trade Center.
Yes, for the Americanized version posters that we got, that you had Haru Nakajima and Kenpachira Satsuma played Megalon in that particular movie, by the way, everybody. Sorry, Godzilla fan here.
All of us.
And then on top of that, they actually recalled it. You could probably find it on YouTube as well if you want to remember the World Trade Center like we do, because us as being New York City born kids here, I say kids, but we're men, but we grew up in those 5 boroughs, and that's what we remember. But they in the original Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, they had a full trailer where Spider-Man webs up a car between the Twin Towers. They pulled that because of 9/11. They had to get rid of it, but you could find it on YouTube. You just have to really search hard. But the fact is that you had such an iconic building like that in there, and it was such a staple. You see the Empire State Building. I was going to say Empire Strikes Back. Sorry, Empire State Building. And then you see the Brooklyn Bridge, and you see a whole bunch of other things that are there that are staples of New York. So that was a major staple back then. So obviously they can't really omit that from the movie, even though it's on video. So I'm just glad that we have these movies like this, and this is one of them. But I kind of moved on. We could talk about Cabby.
Cabby is awesome.
Cabby is awesome.
Ernest Borgnine.
Yep.
As Cabby, who recognizes Snake like right away. He's like, "You're Snake Plissken."
Yeah.
Then that's actually one of the lines I really love. Is like, "No, Snake, you don't want to go down there, Snake."
Before he gets to that point, the coolest scene, though, in my opinion, the plane that's broken up from the Air Force One, and that's technically filmed in downtown Chicago, I think. And they had to bring it in. They had a 18-wheeler it into for that. And you see Kurt Russell with the fires and everything. They had to put all that debris in there.
Right. Yeah.
That is cinematic gold right there. Because it's like real shots. It's not CG. There's no backdrop.
There's
you got people running around in the background. You got the skells. You got what one woman calls the crazies.
Right.
He encounters this woman. She recognized him and saying, "I thought you were dead."
Yeah.
Which is
he gets that a lot. "I thought you were dead."
Yep.
It's like the ongoing joke through the movie.
It's an ongoing joke in this one, and then of course in the next one where we get to escape from LA, it's like, "I thought you were taller."
Yes.
But in this one, it's "I thought you were dead," and we get that I think a good 5 or 6 times from people. Yeah. "I thought you were dead." But we get from her, apparently there are gangs in New York. So we see how apocalyptic it is as a prison. And she goes, apparently she was part of a group. I have it in my notes right here. I got to look at it.
The actress name is Susan Hubley, and she was in a few different movies back in the day.
Yeah,
mostly exploitation stuff.
exactly. No, she was with the Turks, which is a gang in New York for
Right.
the prisoners. But
She was out too late.
she goes, she was out too late. So she don't, she goes, I'm not with the skulls, meaning that there are gangs there. And then obviously the crazies are people. And apparently they were hungry that night. I guess they're cannibals.
Yeah.
So we do see something later on where we see a head on a stake as they're going down Broadway, which Maggie winds up telling to Brain, which we'll get to eventually, probably saying, we can't go down Broadway.
Yes. Yeah.
The Duke's not going to go down there. I know. And that's one of the reasons. And they get attacked. But yeah, it shows you how, even though it's a prison on an island, literally it's its own island. The prisoners are reigning free to do whatever the hell they want, which is so cool for the fact is like all the security guys have to do is watch out from outside, see all the chaos happen within.
Exactly.
So
if they kill each other inside, if they do whatever, it's all inside of the city. Whatever they want to do, nobody's going to mess with them.
Cabby has all the inside stuff. He winds up leading Snake to Brain and Maggie. And apparently, I think Cabby was there from the time that it wasn't a prison. And I always thought that as a kid.
He probably was.
Because he said I've been driving his cab for 30 years.
Yes, yeah.
And he keeps saying that over and over again. I can't leave my cab out here. And then he ditches, Maggie and Brain and Snake at one point. But
don't mess with the Duke.
Yeah, you don't mess with the Duke. Oh, Brain. It's like, oh, Cabby, you coward. And they see him take off.
But you know what? The thing about Cabby is so instrumental to the entire story. And you don't even realize it up until the ending. Like, when you find out what he managed to get a hold of, and we'll get into that.
Yep. I just like that. I just love how the populace makes it a home at one point.
Yes.
Well, before we even get to meet Cabby, he leaves the burning plane, but goes into the theater. It's like a movie theater, or maybe it was a regular old theater.
Everyone's coming to New York.
Shoot a cop with a gun. The Big Apple is plenty of fun. Stab a priest with a fork, and you'll spend your vacation in New York. Rob a bank, take a truck. You can get here by stealing a buck. This is bliss. It's a lark, buddy. Everyone's coming to New York. No more Yankees. Strike the word from your ears. Dead the roulette.
Yeah, This Is New York is the song that they're singing, but it's an apocalyptic version. And they actually have this on the soundtrack, which I love too.
Yes.
And I played it for somebody, and I was like, they were like, what the hell is this? But Snake winds up going into the deeper depths because he's got a tracer on the president, but it's not really the president. And we get that another John Carpenter staple actor.
And I want to say it was George Buckflowers, but it wasn't.
Okay. But we all remember him. Actually, we did talk about him in They Live. So reference They Live podcast with me and Jamie regarding this, because I did bring him up then.
Another great John.
Correct. So, and he's got the bracelet on, but as he's trudging through the building, what?
He says, I'm the president.
I'm the president.
Guy told me, he gave this to me. He said, I'm going to be president.
Yeah. And then, of course, he's talking to Hulk at the same time, Snake, and he's like, yeah, this is your president. He's not here. We're dead. Get me out. It's like, okay. You see Snake sees a bunch of the, I guess, gangs or crazies that are there that are drugged out and they're raping a woman. So that you don't see too much, but it's rape. And they do that. The one that he met before,
she gets dragged under. Yeah.
She gets dragged under by the crazies through the floor. Right. So it tells you how crazy it is and how decrepit the city is. Everything's falling apart because there's no upkeep and everything's rotting. So you could see what an apocalyptic nightmare the state of New York City is, or Manhattan Island is.
I just call that the 70s.
Yeah, well, I remember the 70s in New York when you see boobies on the wall on the billboards after you go down
Yeah,
Broadway.
well, I'm talking more in the Bronx where there were places where those rubble buildings, you literally could have put that plane in any one of those destroyed buildings and shot it at just as easily as you could have in Chicago.
Same here, or in Staten Island and Park Hill and
Yeah,
certain
exactly.
areas in Victory Boulevard. Yeah, right by St. George in that general area where there it's like, the St. George Theater at one point you could fall
Yeah.
through and be surrounded
Back in
by
the
a bunch
day.
of rats and stuff like that. Sorry, we're bringing up old New York City stories.
Yes,
and
let's,
boroughs. Even Brooklyn's like that too. There's certain places like that. I think Lemoore had it worse in the basement. But then we move on and he meets the Duke. They try to get there. He deals with
Right.
Harold. Oh wait, Brain. And Maggie.
Don't call me Harold.
Yep, don't call me Harold. I love that quote. And he comes when we get to that. Cabby basically introduces him to Brain, and then obviously we know. And then there's something there. There's a story there that we will be talking about in Unknown and Interesting Facts. Whether or not I copy and pasted it, if it's not there, we will talk about it because it's part of the uncut version, which they should put out as a full uncut, because that's why I looked at the Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray version.
Yeah.
No, the 4K Blu-ray version, even in the director's cut, they don't have it segued in from the very beginning to the beginning of the movie. They only give you the deleted scene.
It's only in deleted scenes, yeah.
And that's what sucks. But we will talk about that later. So basically, they meet the Duke. They get there. They wind up getting captured by the Duke.
Right.
So that's an interesting.
And that brings you to the scene with Ox Baker where he's forced to basically have gladiatorial combat.
Yep.
With Ox Baker.
Yep. It's Thor Ragnarok with Thor and Hulk.
Yeah, exactly.
but in this case, poor Ox gets a bat with a spike to the back of the head.
Right to the back of the head.
So, and then everybody starts chanting, "Snake, snake, snake." They get out of there. Maggie and Brain wind up trying to get the president, sneak him away after killing the thugs, which is one of which Romero is in there. He's the character. And then supposedly the tape that they found earlier on the president that's supposed to save the world. Romero had that on him, but we don't see Brain or anybody take it. We assume that he does. So Brain and Maggie escape with the president and all that stuff. And they make a deal with the Duke because the Duke was originally going to use the president and go across the bridge.
Exactly. Right.
But there are issues with that for the fact that, the government was going to blow. Yeah, it's mined. Yeah. So that was a bad idea. They got screwed over when it came to the glider.
Yes.
So, and then Snake gets a crossbow bolt in the knee.
Yeah.
Which leads us to, if you go see Escape from New York, that's why he's wearing a metal brace that squeaks. So
Escape from LA?
Yeah, Escape from LA, sorry. Yeah, so it squeaks. So he's got to oil it like the Tin Man by that movie.
Yep.
Yeah, they wind up getting to that point where they try to cross the bridge. Brain, Maggie.
Yes, and Brain is basically leading them because he's got a map where he's mapped out pretty much where all the mines are.
Mines are.
Almost all the mines.
Almost. But we lose people on this bridge.
Yes.
And who do we lose?
We lose Maggie.
Yep.
We lose we lose Brain. Not Brain. No, Brain does get killed, but not in the initial explosion in the car.
Yep.
He basically goes like, "Hey, run this way," and then he hits a mine.
Gets mined of all things, and he had the map.
And we lost Cab. And the cab was pretty much split in half.
Yeah. So and then it got to that point where Snake gets the president back. And then there's this brouhaha. He wants his X-rays to get the explosive out of him. So they do it. Then the president has to go live. But we did leave out where the president winds up shooting The Duke of New York.
Yeah.
I forgot about
He's
that part.
as he's shooting him, and you can tell that
How
there's some
crazy he is.
serious, like, exactly. He's got some real issues from being a prisoner with the Duke of New York. So it's kind of like, yes, they cut off your finger, but Lord only knows what else they did to him, because when he's shooting at the Duke of New York, it's like, you are the Duke of New York. Just
He's lost it.
enjoying it. He's loving it. Yeah.
He just lost it, and he loves it, and he enjoys it. So he winds up destroying the Duke of New York before they get back, obviously.
Yeah.
And that's when Hulk and the guys picked him up, and then the president actually has to make some sort of speech,
Right.
and then they play the tape that Romero
And
had.
go ahead.
What is it?
It's the recording of Everyone's Coming to New York. They start playing it, and it's a song, and you're like, oh, that is not what you were expecting to play, because Snake actually ends up with the recording of the speech.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the speech that is supposed to save the entire planet from
Mhm.
like another war. And as he's walking away at the end of the movie, he's just basically taking the tape and pulling it out. Like your worst nightmare back in the 70s. If you ever had a cassette player and you had one get stuck
And it
and
got
like had to
eaten
pull
by
it out
your
and have
radio.
all get yes. You felt that.
Your Walkman went maximum overdrive on you. Your car did the same thing. It just spits it out.
Oh, and he's just walking away like it ain't nothing.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it's kind of funny that he ends up with it, because in the movie, there's a line that it seems like a throwaway line at the time when they say it.
Yeah.
Right? Romero's walking around. He's got the cabbie hat on, and
Mhm.
they're like, where did you get that cabbie hat? It's like, I traded for it. And that's what he traded for it. He traded because when they shot the briefcase that was, we didn't even get into this, the briefcase that is attached to the president's hand.
Yeah.
With a handcuff.
The Duke was torturing the president with
Right.
Snake's gun, and
then-
it shoots open, and
Yeah.
the papers fall out as well as the cassette,
And the tape.
and then Romero winds up like going over there, picking it up, and sticking it in his coat pocket.
Yeah.
So that's the tape
And
that
then
was
he
traded
trades
for
it.
the hat for Gabby.
He trades it with Cabby, and Cabby ends up with the tape, and he's pissed because the tape. He's like, when he's telling Smink about, oh, what's with that tape? It's nothing but people talking, like it's such an awesome, like it's a twist at the end, and you don't really see it. It's,
Yeah,
it ain't Sixth Sense level, but damn it, it's back in the 70s. That was a great twist.
it was a great twist. Yeah, but a lot of stuff that I do like about within the movie too is like during certain scenes there would be intense moments of action.
Yes.
And the beats would pick up with every scene for how the movie was flowing. So the music kind of represented also what was going on within the scene and enhanced it. And it was a little bit more in the forefront too, if you think about it. Not as much as audio that's coming from the film for action or from just talking. You feel it. So they raised it properly so that way you felt that tension.
Yeah.
Or to feel that action or to raise a heartbeat inside of you because to get that adrenaline going. So that's part of what I always liked about that. And I think that's my appeal to a lot of what Carpenter does within his films. And that's what makes me feel like when we covered Prince of Darkness, it did the same thing.
Right.
Because it was also raised in that particular film as well.
So
other than that, that's all I had.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty much all. I mean, we've covered quite a bit there.
Oh, we did. In such a short time.
So what we're getting into now is interesting facts and unknown facts about the movie.
Yep.
And I'll go with this first one.
Okay.
The eye patch was Russell's idea. A large part of what makes Snake Plissken character so memorable is his distinctive wardrobe. His overall look is designed to be as cool and intimidating as possible, with the most striking individual component being his eye patch. It is hard to imagine Plissken without his iconic eye patch, but it wasn't in the original script. The eye patch was a contribution that came straight from Kurt Russell. When speaking to Esquire in 2015 for the Western Bone Tomahawk, another good movie,
yep,
Russell said that he often contributes ideas to the hair and wardrobe departments in his films. He used Escape from New York as an example, saying, "When I read Snake Plissken, I said to John, oh, I know what I want to do. I want to wear an eye patch." Russell invented a whole backstory for why Snake needed an eye patch as well. At some point in his past, Snake got nuclear dust caught in his eye, and the constant pain from the informed Russell's brooding performance. Oh, okay. He also mentioned a little detail that could reframe how an audience perceives Snake throughout the film. Maybe he can still see out of it. Maybe he can see through the eye patch. Interesting. During a 2014 interview with Entertainment Weekly, Russell confirmed that he had a hand in designing the rest of Snake's look as well. This included choosing the location of the Cobra tattoo and attaching golf cleats onto the toes of his boots. Awesome.
Golf cleats. I didn't recognize that either. All right. Well, next up, the project started out as a book adaptation. New York was an original screenplay with no prior source material, but the project originated in an unusual way. Carpenter's previous film, The Fog, had been made for Avco Embassy Pictures, but was only the first in multi-picture deal. As explained by Carpenter himself in a making of featurette for Escape from New York, he was first approached by Robert Remy, the president of Avco Embassy Pictures, to make a film adaptation of the book, The Philadelphia Experiment. The book claims to be a work of nonfiction, but delves deep into paranormal phenomena and conspiracy theories. Carpenter started working on adapting the book, but came to the conclusion that it had no third act and would not make a satisfying film. Instead, he went back to Remy and asked to alter their deal to be for the production of one of his original scripts instead. Carpenter presented Remy with his ready-to-go script for Escape from New York, which had been collecting dust in a drawer for nearly a decade, and Remy said, "Sure, let's do it." The resulting film was a major financial success, bringing in more than quadruple its meager budget. After this, when Remy left Avco behind to become the president of marketing and distribution at Universal, Escape from New York wound up being one of the final films produced by Avco. Interesting.
It's cool, yeah.
But they also did a movie called The Philadelphia Experiment.
Philadelphia Experiment, right. That's Michael
Pare.
Michael Pare, yeah. And it's kind of like a time travel movie. It's the ship is from the
It's
World War
based
II.
upon an experiment that happened in
Yes.
Philadelphia
They were
water
trying to,
with a
make it invisible.
battleship, and they were trying to make it invisible. Supposedly, it disappeared but showed up elsewhere, and that's what the rumors were. My uncle, who was part of the Air Force, had heard certain things that happened. These are one of those phenomenal things that happened during that time within the 60s and 70s. I think this was probably, I would say, within the 60s. It happened because my uncle was overseas at that point in the Air Force. So,
All right. The New York City escape was made out of cardboard. Escape from New York was an extremely ambitious film considering its sparse budget. Shots involving the macro view of the city skyline were a particular challenge, requiring complex miniatures. Special effects head Robert Skotak detailed the entire creation process in the 2022 documentary Sense of Scale. The professional grade materials that would typically be used to create a miniature of this scale and complexity were too expensive. So Skotak and the company resorted to using cardboard to construct the various buildings and city features. This was the least expensive way we thought we could make this thing, he explained. The 10 days and 4 or 5 pairs of hands working on it, they pulled off the film's incredibly impressive miniature shots using mostly cardboard and Xerox copies. To create the detailing on the buildings, the team went outside and took photographs of the buildings that looked the most like New York architecture around their Los Angeles studio. Those photos were then blown up, printed, and stuck onto the cardboard surfaces of the buildings. The final step was the tedious process of coloring the photos in by hand. Colored pencils were used because the budget was too low to print in color. We didn't even have the option of color photographs, recalled Skotak. Anything that wasn't facing the camera was left blank, and assorted odds and ends were glued on to look like air conditioners or architectural features to give a sense of dimension to the flat buildings. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's pretty cool because, it's low tech, but honestly, it worked.
Hey, it worked.
It worked,
Maybe
I
not
think,
for 4K if we would have shot it that way then. But now, back in the 70s, yeah.
yeah. But the funny thing is that Tron was the same way in certain aspects.
Exactly.
So if you look, Sean Clark actually, I've mentioned before, Sean actually has like a thing from Tron. And if you look at the original helmet or the, like,
Right.
I forget what it was, the scooper that they used for
It was like highlight.
deadly discs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like some sort of scooper thing that they use in some sporting. And what was it?
Highlight. The name of the sport is highlight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it looks kind of generic in the way they painted it too. So it's wild. All right, next up, the movie was inspired by Death Wish. On face value, the dark sci-fi thrills of Escape from New York have very little in common with the 1974 Charles Bronson vigilante flick, Death Wish. But in an interview with David Weiner, Carpenter cited the Bronson hit as his biggest inspiration when writing the script. Awesome. Something about the movie struck a chord with me, he said. It wasn't a great film, but it was a fun movie. Carpenter also said he pulled influences from many science fiction books. A Harry Harrison book story was This Planet, the toughest, most evil place in the universe. Carpenter recalled citing the 1925 to 2012 American author. So who are you going to choose to go there and do something with some mission? The most evil guy in the universe, obviously. The idea stuck with me. Death Wish is a violent action film with a New York City setting and a level of crime that makes the city feel nearly dystopian and borderline apocalyptic. When looking at it in those terms, it becomes easier to see its influence on Escape from New York. In a different interview with the Ultimate Rabbit, Carpenter named Dirty Harry alongside Death Wish as two primary movie inspirations behind his film. Fittingly, Bronson and Eastwood were both considered for the Pliskin role.
Wow. Okay, so maybe Clint Eastwood for sure could have played Snake Plissken. It would have been a very different performance.
Yeah.
But Charles Bronson as Snake Plissken? I don't know.
It's weird.
All right, so the Snake Plissken role was written for Clint Eastwood. Escape from New York was produced by Deborah Hill, who also co-wrote and produced Halloween, Halloween 2, The Fog, and later Escape from L.A. With Carpenter. As she explained in a behind-the-scenes bonus feature, Carpenter wrote the Snake Plissken character with Clint Eastwood in mind. The first draft of the script was written by Carpenter when he was still in film school. It was subsequently shelved for several years. By the time Escape from New York was ready to be made, Carpenter's ideal casting had changed. He had just worked with Kurt Russell for the first time on the made-for-TV movie Elvis, which is awesome.
Yep.
And the two formed a lasting bond. Carpenter and Russell would end up collaborating as director and star on 5 films total, creating many of the highlights of both their filmographies with movies like The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China, while shades of the initial Eastwood inspiration can still be seen in the Snake character, both in how he is written and how Russell performs him with a gruff voice and apathetic disposition. Russell made Snake his own. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did. All right. The film wasn't shot in New York. We made mention of this, ladies and gentlemen. Given that New York is the title of the film, it might come as a surprise to find out not only a single shot in the entire film actually features the real New York City. Some of the interior scenes of New York City were shot, Escape from New York, were shot on sound stages in Los Angeles, but the majority of the film was shot in St. Louis. This was much cheaper than shooting on location in New York City and had the added benefit of being a far less busy area. The production couldn't afford crowd control, and St. Louis happened to be quiet, mostly vacant after sundown, whereas New York City is active 24/7. As Kurt Russell explained to Entertainment Weekly in 2014, there was nothing there at nighttime. It was just completely empty. The crew had free reign of the place, which let them shoot fast and cheaply. There was another factor that went into choosing St. Louis, of all places. A large part of the city had recently been destroyed in a fire, and the cleanup efforts hadn't yet been undertaken when Escape from New York was made. Much of the post-apocalyptic looking rubble, debris, and crumbling buildings seen on screen were simply the aftermath of that fire. The film made a use of that destruction for free production design per The Ultimate Rabbit. Pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. Lee Van Cleef was in agony on set. The prolific Lee Van Cleef was best known for his Western roles, most famously opposite, ironically enough, Clint Eastwood in For a Few Dollars More and The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. While Escape from New York isn't quite a Western, it does bring a slight Western flavor to certain elements. Carpenter, a fan of Westerns and directors like Howard Hawks and sometimes John Ford, was strongly influenced by them despite never directing a through-and-through Western himself. Of Van Cleef in particular, Carpenter called him a favorite actor. In Escape from New York, Van Cleef plays the role of Hout, the man who enlists Pliskin into the rescue mission by threat of deadly force. If Van Cleef's performance seemed more ornery than usual, it might be because he was suffering from an untreated injury while shooting. In the same interview, Carpenter spoke about Van Cleef's difficulty, saying he had seriously injured his knee during the filming of another movie and had never gotten it fixed. As a result, he was in constant pain while making Escape from New York. As a consummate professional, Van Cleef toughed it out and got the job done. Escape from New York arrived in the final phase of Van Cleef's career as he passed away a few years later of a heart attack.
Wow.
Sad. But he had a good
Yeah, he had a good run, and yeah, he worked hard.
Hey, he lives on forever. Film.
Yeah, he worked hard. All right, next up. James Cameron worked on special effects. So the filmmaker behind some of the highest grossing, most beloved films ever made, like Titanic, Aliens, The Terminator, and Avatar franchises, he took an early job on Escape from New York before he was a big name director. James Cameron got his start by working in special effects. His credits include working as an uncredited production assistant on Roger Corman, Ramones. Why is it Ramones? It's Roger Corman's flick Rock and Roll High School.
Right, but it had the Ramones. So.
Which had the Ramones in it, obviously. Serving as the art director and working on the special effects of Corman's Battle Beyond the Stars, and then helping out on Escape from New York. He also
Battle
did
Beyond the Stars, which is another version of this Magnificent Seven.
Yes, but he what this omits too, by the way, I'm going to add this. Cameron also did Piranha 2.
Yes, he did.
And that's where he met Gail Ann Hurd, I think. I should ask Gail that. She's on Twitter. All right. Continue. In the first stage of his career, Cameron worked for Corman's company, now New World Pictures, as special effects head. Robert Skotak explained Carpenter had seen Battle Beyond the Stars and was impressed by the low-budget special effects work on display. He made the decision to hire the same team to handle the effects for Escape from New York. Cameron worked on the film's matte paintings and also served as a specialized director of photography for miniature sequences. Later that same year, Cameron made his feature-length directorial debut with, of all things, I just mentioned it, Piranha 2: The Spawning, a sequel to Roger Corman's produced, Joe Dante directed Piranha from 1978.
Right. The score was made by a first-time composer. Carpenter's musical abilities have always been a source of amplified strength in his films. After composing the soundtracks for his films Dark Star, Assault on Person 13, Halloween, and The Fog, single-handedly, he decided to bring in a second musician to create the score to Escape from New York. Carpenter still composed the soundtrack himself, but for the first time he was aided by Alan Howarth. Carpenter and Howarth would go on to collaborate on numerous musical endeavors over the years, including movie soundtracks like Christine, They Live, and most of the Halloween sequels. Before New York, Howarth had never composed a single soundtrack before. He was, however, involved in the film industry previously. His focus was in the world of sound effects, and he had a reputation as a synthesizer specialist. As a special effects creator, he worked on movies like Star Trek The Motion Picture, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Battle Beyond the Stars, Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Poltergeist, among dozens of other major movies. Carpenter, meanwhile, would eventually lead a successful late-stage career as a musician outside of the film industry. And I love Carpenter's stuff.
Yep.
We talked about that in the Composer Show.
That we did. And that would be on Fantasy Picks Movie Edition, everybody.
That's correct.
Okay. Next up, the distributor didn't think Russell was tough enough.
I could see that.
I could see that too, because he was coming off of Disney.
Right.
Yeah. So it may be difficult to imagine anyone other than Kurt Russell playing Snake, and his reputation these days is as tough, macho guy known for handling action hero roles in movies like Tombstone, The Hateful Eight, Big Trouble in Little China, Bone Tomahawk, and more. When Escape from New York was being made, however, Russell was seen in a different light. Before taking on the too cool for school Snake Plissken character, Russell was best known for family-friendly Disney comedies like The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes and The Barefoot Executive. All could be seen on Disney Plus, by the way, everybody. The latter of which featured him acting opposite a chimpanzee. When Carpenter told the AFCO Embassy Pictures executives that he wanted to cast Russell, AFCO shot him down. Carpenter recounted the cast troubles in another interview with David Weiner, saying they were uncertain about Kurt as a hero. They said, well, he's just this Disney kid. As covered by Cinephilia and Beyond, instead of Russell, the studio preferred more experienced and reputable Charles Bronson, Chuck Norris, or Tommy Lee Jones to jump in the shoes of the lead hero, Snake Plissken. Given the Death Wish inspiration, Bronson made sense, but Carpenter was dead set on Russell. He fought Avco on the casting, and he eventually gave in. And thank you, Mr. Carpenter, for doing so, because we wouldn't have Kurt Russell as an action hero.
And just to be fair, as much of a badass as Chuck Norris is, and we love him.
Yeah.
One of the major issues that Carpenter had with him was that he felt he was too old. And at that time, at that
he was
point,
older. Yeah, it would be hard to pull off.
Chuck Norris, he's getting big in movies at that point. Now he's done The Octagon. He's done he's starting to get that popularity going.
Yeah.
But he's still an older guy.
Yeah, and Tommy Lee Jones, he was probably within and around, but he wasn't as known.
Right.
And it's not, we're not shaming those actors, but
no, not at all.
Honestly,
we
love those movies. I grew up on Chuck Norris and Charles Bronson. Think about it. Chuck Norris was in Enter the Dragon.
Yes.
And,
sorry, not Enter the Dragon, Return of the Dragon.
Return of the Dragon, sorry. I forgot that.
Yeah.
I got it backwards.
That's okay.
But, and then obviously Clint Eastwood and all that stuff. Yes. They were getting older as they were, it's like Kurt was at that prime age, I think. And I think he was primed to be brought in. And I think John Carpenter saw in something into Kurt that the world needed to. And then with that, we got great movies from him. We wouldn't have seen him in Backdraft.
Exactly. Movies like that where he's definitely no longer playing that part that he would play in all of those Disney movies.
Mm-hmm.
Even in different from, Escape from New York. Backdraft is a great example of that.
Yeah.
Another one that fully fits with the Snake Plissken character, but I also feel like is criminally underrated.
Okay.
Is Soldier.
Oh, yes.
Soldier is a fantastic movie, and he's in phenomenal shape.
Oh,
in that
amazing.
movie.
That was in the 90s at that point,
yes.
Right? And it was more futuristic?
Yeah, it was straight
like
up
a futuristic soldier.
He's a soldier who, from the time that he is born, they're basically raised to have no emotion, to kill with no compunction whatsoever.
Universal
they
soldier.
Are even trained. Yeah. Well, they're even trained to kill each other. Like, one of the first things that they have them do is they throw them in a room with a vicious dog, and either you kill the
Kill
dog or you die.
or the dog kills you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I see it.
That movie is fantastic.
It's amazing. I remember it. I got to go back to watch that, man. But I'm like a huge Kurt Russell fan. So in the
Yeah,
sense,
me too.
it's like, oh, think about it. Tango and Cash.
Yes.
Stallone and Russell, but both are badasses and huge in
And
that
Terry
film.
Hatcher.
Oh yeah, the lovely, beautiful, amazing Terry Hatcher from
Playing the
Lois and
sister.
Clark.
She's Stallone's sister.
Yep, and that, and then Kirk gets with her, and and it's that whole thing. But it was so cool too because you not only got action, you got the comedy. It's like Beverly Hills Cop with Lethal Weapon. Two people that shouldn't be together, and they're dealing.
Yeah.
It's like The Last Boy Scout with Bruce Willis and
Bruce Willis and Damon Wayans.
Damon Wayans. Yeah, we're bringing up
One
a
of
lot of
the
movies.
a movie that I still to this day I use the line, dollars, American dollars.
We're bringing up and we're digressing. Sorry.
Yeah,
everybody.
we're digressing. Okay.
I'm going to move on to the next one, or is it me?
The first draft
Okay.
was 100% serious. John Carpenter first wrote Escape from New York while he was still a student at USC, but the final film was quite different from the initial draft. His original vision for the film was darker and more tonally consistent all the way through, without any levity. As Deborah Hill explained in the making of featurette, when Avco Embassy Pictures greenlit the production, the first thing they said was, let's do a rewrite and make it funnier and make it hipper. Instead of handling this rewrite solo, Carpenter brought in his friend Nick Castle. Carpenter and Castle had already been working together since their film school days when they co-wrote the short film The Resurrection of Bronco Billy and collaborated on the Carpenter debut feature Dark Star. Castle is best known as one of the main actors to play Michael Myers in the original Halloween, and later on he would direct the 80s classic The Last Starfighter, which sorely needs a reboot.
No reboot. No, don't touch it. I actually talked to him about this. I got to meet him and
Nick Castle?
Yeah, I got to meet him. I got his autograph, got a picture with him years ago. And
Awesome.
I said that to him. I said, I love The Last Starfighter. He goes, really? Everybody comes to me for about Halloween. I was like, dude, I remember that movie. It just sticks with me. And I have that on Blu-ray. I have it on iTunes. I showed it to my niece like during the pandemic, and she goes, this is from the 80s? The digital effects aren't that great, but it's a really good movie.
It's a great movie, and yes, the digital effects compared to what we can do now obviously don't stand a candle, but then again, that's like the first movie that was done that way.
Yeah, properly CG.
So, right. Okay. In the same featurette, Carpenter credits Castle with making Escape from New York funny, saying he brought all the humor. He brought the whole idea of the American bandstand piece, all the kind of humorous exchanges Nick and I worked on together. He brought that kind of spark to it. Carpenter also says Castle helped flesh out some of the key supporting characters and added in some of Snake's most iconic lines.
Yeah. So it's great that Nick and him have that rapport and they're good friends, and they could actually incorporate all that. And that's really what makes movie gold, if you think about it.
Yes.
All right. Next up, Kurt Russell had an in-character showdown with 4 tough civilians. Okay. While shooting on location in St. Louis, Kurt Russell got a little too close for comfort with some of the locals. The budget was too low to properly block off with the area or employ crowd control, leading to one significant incident that threatened the film's leading man. During a scene shot in the middle of the night, Russell, dressed as Snake Plissken, rounded a corner and moved out of sight in the rest of the cast and crew. He was away from their sight. Unbeknownst to him, there were 4 men gathered there that he would later describe to Entertainment Weekly as pretty rough characters. Russell came face to face with the men, and he was soon engaged in a stare down. He stayed in character as Snake, and then with his eye patch, prop guns, and sci-fi gadgets, made for an intimidating enough figure to scare off the 4 men. He describes how he flashed the light on the end of the gun, and they went, "Hey man, easy, easy." They just kind of turned and very quietly walked away. Russell said from the encounter, confirmed to him that the intimidating look they had signed for Snake would work.
That's awesome.
Which honestly, I have to add to this. This is a story that it's not his daughter. It's his pretty much adoptive daughter. This is Goldie Hawn's daughter from. She was in Almost Famous.
Kate Hudson.
Yep. So Kate had mentioned, and I think she was doing the interview with maybe had been with Wyatt, but mentioned how Kurt was. There was like a family outing. They were all in a car. They were young at the time. The guy was laying on the horn. They were in the middle of traffic. You know how traffic jams happen and stuff like that. The guy started getting violent and vulgar to them from behind in the car behind them. Apparently, Kurt knows how to handle himself, and he took the guy out with a punch. And dude, I when I heard that story, I'm like, I love this man.
No.
He takes care of his family. He knows how to step up and take care of it.
He obviously, I mean, granted, like we were telling him about, we had talked about this a little bit earlier, that he and Goldie Hawn have been like life mates pretty much. So
yeah,
granted, they've not married, but it's pretty obvious from the way that even Kate Hudson, I've heard her talk about him.
She refers to him as dad all the time.
She does call him dad, yeah. And that's awesome because he's not her dad. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Technically, she's Goldie's daughter with,
right.
I think it's a producer or director, but they have that family.
Yeah,
and
that's hard to do.
Yeah,
when you're a stepfather or something like that coming in, and you're,
Yeah, and on top of that, he's a stand-up kind of dude too. Like he will protect his family no matter what, which is amazing.
Okay. A prop from the film wound up in Mork and Mindy.
Holy crap, that was actually in my notes. All right, I don't have to say anything. Wow, really? I said it. All right, well, you talk about it. This is going to be fun.
As is sometimes the case in film industry, props created for one film can wind up being recycled for different productions. Attempting to track the path a prop takes after its original film can sometimes be fruitless. But that is exactly what author John Walsh did in his 2021 book, Escape from New York, the official story of the film. Walsh looks back on the creation and legacy of the movie. One highlight from the book is the inclusion of some of the film's original storyboards drawn by legendary Joe Alves, who was Steven Spielberg's storyboard artist and production designer on Jaws and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. One of Walsh's most interesting findings is that a prop custom made for Escape from New York was later repurposed and used in the Robin Williams sitcom Mork and Mindy. The prop in question was the escape pod used by Donald. Oh, that's okay. All right. I have to stop.
They painted it red and put the presidential symbol on it.
Yeah.
And they wound up using it in Mork and Mindy.
That's awesome. Used by Donald Pleasance as the president. The fourth and final season of Mork and Mindy incorporated the prop and used it in its promotional stills, using it as a Mork's updated egg ship. In 2018, the prop was included in an auction lot of props used on Mork and Mindy, alongside the likes of signed contracts and costume pieces. The lot was a part of the TV Treasures Live auction and had an estimated value of $20,000 to $30,000. By the time the auction was closed, the ship was unsold. Whoa. Okay.
Still got to be out there, dude.
I mean, I probably wouldn't have paid $20,000 for it, but
no.
If it went unsold, they probably would have taken anything.
But the funny thing is that I was rewatching it like literally earlier today. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, that looks like freaking Mork and Mindy. Mork's egg from Mork. It just,
when I read it,
and it was painted, and I'm reading it, and I'm like, oh my God.
When I read it, I thought about it. I was like, oh my God. Yes, I do remember that. Okay.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Like I said, listeners, I don't read these ahead. So I just had that in my notes as other notes. Okay. Well, next up, the film-inspired multi-billion-dollar video game franchise. All right. So the connection between Escape from New York and the gaming industry is surprisingly complicated. No official video game was ever made of the property of course, but it has come closer than you might think. And this was actually in my mind in my notes what they should have had in an
Yes.
original video game. So it says here, an Escape from New York video game was far into development in the mid 2000s for PlayStation 2 and Xbox. And plenty of gameplay footage and promotional materials were released, but the game was never finished. The passing of Deborah Hill was thought to be partially responsible for the game getting shelved, according to Screen Crush. Though not a video game, there is an official Escape from New York game. It was a crowd-funded board game that raised more than 6 times its initial goal. In a place of an official video game, fans of the movie can still get their kicks from Hideo Kojima's Metal Gear Solid video game franchise. Kojima is a diehard cinephile and packs his games with copious movie references and homages. One movie homage that is impossible to miss is the Metal Gear Solid series is found in the game's main character and is a tribute to Escape from New York. Just like Carpenter's classic film, the protagonist of the Metal Gear Solid series is a gravelly voiced badass named Snake, and he even wears an eye patch in some of the games. Metal Gear Solid 2 made the connection even clearer. The Snake, with Snake, used the name or the last name Pliskin when going undercover. I did not know that.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Metal Gear Solid Snake is his full name, or his code name. That's his code name is Solid Snake. And in Metal Gear Solid 2, there's a point where you run into, Solid Snake is the main protagonist of Metal Gear Solid, but in Metal Gear Solid 2, it's another character named Raiden.
Mhm.
And Raiden runs into Solid Snake, and when he asks him who he is, Solid Snake says, "My name is Pliskin."
Wow. That's wild. Honestly, I had in my notes saying that they should just make a regular video game. And it could just be an RPG of the whole film and then have sidebars and stuff like that. It could be like a version of Duke Nukem.
Duke Nukem. Yeah.
Duke Nukem or Doom or something like that, where you're just the character and you just go through these missions.
Yeah.
But
nowadays, that's pretty much Cyberpunk 2077, guys. Okay. So.
All right. The last one now, huh?
A new Escape from New York is in the works without John Carpenter. Okay. That doesn't make me as happy, but okay.
Yeah, I've heard this too.
For years, there have been rumors about a remake, reboot, sequel, prequel, spinoff, or even an anime adaptation of Escape from New York. All of those potential projects have more or less fallen apart. The only direct cinematic follow-up to date was 1996's Escape from LA, and that didn't exactly set the world on fire when it only earned back half its production budget at the box office. Nevertheless, rumors about another installment in the Escape from series persist, and it looks like momentum could be gathering. The reboot is in the hands of Radio Silence, the production team behind the 2 new Scream movies, as first reported in Deadline in 2022. The outlet reported that Carpenter was involved in the project and serving as an executive producer, but that might not have been 100% accurate.
Yeah, take that with a grain of salt.
During a 2023 retrospective interview with Variety, Carpenter said he had no involvement in the reboot. "No one told me about it. This is the thing about my career in Hollywood. No one tells me anything." The interview seems to have been the first time Carpenter had heard Radio Silence was making an Escape from New York reboot. He went on to add, "No, I haven't heard about the latest thing. No one wants me around, and they don't tell me anything to keep me in the dark. It's safer for them."
Man, somebody hire him. Let's do it. Let's do it.
No kidding.
Yeah, the only thing I could say is we talked about this. There's 2 movies that Frank and I were talking about. So Frank, talk about the one that you had in reference to Escape from New York.
One that is very, very similar to Escape from New York.
Okay.
And it's Doomsday. It's from 2006, I think it was.
2008.
2008. And it's Rona Mitra playing it's a female version of Snake Plissken, to the point where she's actually got a bionic eye. She's not wearing an eye patch, unless she takes the eye out, which she can do. She can actually take out her eye, put it down, and have it as a remote camera. And that's she's got a patch on when she does that. And that if that doesn't like cement like this is a let's say an homage, like we said for a lot of things, an homage to Escape from New York. So the plot is almost exactly the same. There with some minor differences.
Yeah.
So it takes place in Scotland, and there's a part of Scotland that is overrun by a virus, and the cure to that virus is in Scotland. So she gets a team together, and they have to go into Scotland and get the cure out. She gears up pretty much like the same scene that I was telling you guys about earlier in where there's the layout of all the weapons that she's going to be using, which is really awesome. And then the actual story takes off kind of like that, where she gets into the city, she makes it over the walls because they've also got a wall blocking off the city. And she gets inside. When she finally does get the cure, things go sideways. And after that, it becomes a medieval biker, like everything that you can throw at the wall.
Thing. Yeah.
So
it's Mad Max Beyond, no, the Road Warrior, right?
It's a mix between all of those things, but it mostly is the thing that you'll get the most from it is definitely Escape from New York.
Okay.
And it's actually a fun movie if you can just like enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah.
Mindless bubblegum, but it's super fun. So
yeah. It also has Malcolm McDowell, Leanne Liebenberg, and then Bob Hoskins. And it's Doomsday from 2008. You could find that on Apple TV, Vudu, Redbox, Amazon Prime for about $3.99. So if you want to have a movie night, you can do that. So that's something similar to Escape from New York, but we're going to go into a movie that because we already spoke about Escape from LA.
Yep.
And after LA, Escape from LA, there was, even though it bombed at the box office, and even though I enjoyed it nonetheless, I still enjoy it because it's got Snake Plissken. It's got that whole apocalyptic journey. This is the second movie within it, but they were going to do Escape from Earth. And John Carpenter had a whole script and everything was supposed to go into play, and he had it shelved for a long time. Well, somebody apparently stole it. And a movie had come out that starred Guy Pearce and Maggie Grace. And it's called Lockout, that came out in 2012. Now, there was a lawsuit regarding this particular movie. I don't know what happened. I'm not going to go into it because I'm not involved. I'm just stating what I remember from this. I did see the movie. Did I find it entertaining? I did.
Right.
It's a sci-fi action movie. Did I see Guy Pearce in an action movie other than a time machine? No, because Guy Pearce always seems to be like more proper, and I don't see him as an action hero. Maggie Grace, on the other hand, we know her from what's the name of that Liam Neeson movie where his Taken? Yeah, she played the daughter in all three films, and great actress. She moved on. Unfortunately, she had to be on Fear the Walking Dead. But I met the actress too herself. I only got to talk for a short moment. This is long after Lost and everything. She was still on Fear, still is on Fear from according to her contract. But this movie was compared to what that original spec script that John Carpenter did, and there was a lawsuit regarding this. And like I said, I found it interesting. There was money that was made from the lawsuit, apparently, from what I could tell, from what I remember. But the thing is, I still personally want Escape from Earth. I want that. I still want that. Whether it be, I don't care if it's in comic book form, audio book form. I would love to have that. And if they do it in audio book form, guess who you need to have brought back? Mr. Kurt Russell. Bring him back and have him voice Snake Plissken, because only he could do that voice. But yeah, the movie, like I said, was interesting, entertaining. We have like those main characters. I think those actors did great for that particular film. It's called Lockout. It's from 2012. You could find it in a lot of places, iTunes, Amazon, all that good stuff. So if you're
plays on Sci-Fi a lot too.
Yeah, so it's a good space action movie. So that's something to think about. But other than that, let's move on to our last topic, which is
our last topic.
Quotes.
Quotes, yes.
So do you have any? Even though
I actually do, them. But I kind of already gave it away.
Go ahead.
Because my favorite quote is actually when Romero comes to the police. Like they are there, they're trying to like take control of the situation. And again, he just comes out like he's walking like a peacock, and just like he's in control of the situation at that point, and he knows it. And he's like, if you're not near 30 seconds, he dies. And just the way he gives the delivery of the line.
Yeah.
Like this is and I can see exactly why Kurt Russell said he sets the tone of the film, because he really does. That one scene where he comes out, Romero's not a major character in the movie, but he does have some pivotal things that happen.
Yeah.
And the first is when he shows up and he makes the ultimatum to the cops, and they're like, we're ready to talk. And he's like, 16, 17, or 17, 16, 50. He's counting down, and they're trying to, like, as they get lower and lower in the numbers, they're like, all right, fine, we got to go.
You gotta go. Back up.
So that is, it sticks with me to this day.
Yeah.
Just that delivery of the line, the way he does it. And he pretty much plays that part through the entire movie that way.
Perfectly.
Like he does really quirky things, and you're like when he's on screen, that's where your eyes go. So
well, he's got the crazy eyes.
That's why exactly. He's got the crazy eyes, and he's got the hair all feathered and everything. He's got, the way that he's in, really thin guy, but he pulls it off to where you can tell he's wiry. Like
he looks like a punk rocker on a Cramps album.
Yes. Yeah. It's
the only way for me to describe
Johnny
it.
Rotten definitely comes to mind when you look at him. Like
the Cramps, and it was like on an album cover. Maybe even Eddie the Head from Iron Maiden on the first Iron Maiden album with the hair up because it was punkied. Because, even though Derek Riggs did that and took it off of a picture he saw that was on a Vietnamese truck, thinking that the American government was trying to gain sympathy with the picture. But he's got that cool, weird look, and we talked about it. One for
and
me.
And then the other one, I gave away the other one too.
What is it?
Another one of my favorite ones is, "You are the Dick of New York."
You're the Duke! You're the Duke! You're the Duke!
Lane number one.
I just love the way that Donald Pleasance
delivery.
gives that line.
The delivery is, and keep in mind,
you're Snake Plissken, ain't you? What do you want?
Nothing. I thought you were dead.
Yeah, I just stuck it in there in the podcast. So I'm going to be sneaking some of these audio clips because we like them so much. One for me would be Cabby going, "Hey, you're Snake Plissken. I thought you were dead." But it's something that comes up throughout the whole movie. Everybody says, "I thought you were dead."
And it's never... once, especially like the first time you see it, you're like, "Oh, okay, cool." Everybody keeps saying the same thing, but on rewatches, it stops being funny.
No.
When someone says, "I thought you were dead."
It should be a drinking game.
Yes.
One other that I have would be Snake himself saying, and this is Hawk when he finds the homeless guy with the transmitter on him, and he's saying, "I'm the president." He goes, "Listen to me, Hawk. The president is dead. You got that? Somebody had him for dinner." Because he figures everybody's a cannibal.
That's a great line too.
Yeah.
it's sad that I can't think of more.
I
But,
have more
there's really-
too.
there's
I
great-
wish
you-
I could
you really-
share these too, but you already got it. Oh, Snake going, who's the Duke? And Cabby goes, the Duke of New York, a number one. That's the Duke.
A number one, yeah.
The how the inflection from Ernest Borgnine when he says that is
Right.
amazing.
Or even when he takes off on them, and because he's like, I know that sound of that house, that car anywhere. That's
Yep.
the Duke's car.
Yeah, and it had chandeliers on the front and everything else.
Yeah.
Obviously, we didn't mention that, everybody, but I'm sure you guys watched the movie. This was Snake to Harold. Brain, I'm glad you remembered me. Yeah,
Yes.
a man should remember his past. Kansas City, 4 years ago, you ran out on me, left me sitting there. And Brain retorts, you were late. Snake goes, we were buddies, Harold. You, me, and we forgot to mention this, and Fresno Bob.
Fresno Bob.
You know what they did to Bob? And this is where we're going into even more spoilers because we left this out. We forgot in the unknown facts. There is a deleted scene. We mentioned it in the very beginning. There's a director's cut, and you have the commentary from both John Carpenter and Kurt Russell throughout it. I think there's one from Deborah Hill and somebody from photography as well. There's multiple within the DVD and the Blu-ray, and they've transitioned over to that for multi-purposes. You don't get that on iTunes, by the way. But they did that whole front scene where Harold did leave, and it was Fresno Bob and Snake, and they were on a bank robbery, and they were trying to get away, and it's this whole running through a train station or subway station to get away from the police, and Bob gets caught.
Yeah.
And Harold is on his way, and then eventually you see Snake get caught. But I think Fresno Bob winds up getting messed up. So
just a little.
That's it. It's in the deleted scenes. It's one of those that we wish that they did for the director's cut, where they reintegrated that as the beginning of the movie. So that way we already know who Snake Plissken is. We've already seen him, but they wanted to do the build up with the whole intro by Jamie Lee Curtis introducing and explaining about New York and how it's a prison, what happened to the world, what's going on with Manhattan Island and the Statue of Liberty as being, and then how it's been built up as a prison. And then it shows and goes into the whole stuff about what's this plane, and then find out it's Air Force One. And then next thing you know, at the same time they get that, you do get a segue, but all you see is Kurt Russell's back with his hands in handcuffs being walked into.
Right.
With the swagger, but you don't get to see a front view of him. So that's something that sadly disappoints me still to this day. Very much like the Back to Future Eric Stoltz cut that we should have already by now. All right. I digressed a little bit too much there. All right. So yeah, this is the best one though. This is Snake and Brain. And Snake goes, you're always smart, Harold. And Brain goes, just one thing right now. Don't call me Harold.
Yeah, and he delivers that line really well.
He delivers that line perfectly. All right.
When he's telling him, like, hey, if you don't know precisely where the mines are, you know?
I think he's so smart. All right. That's why he calls himself Brain. Unfortunately, he's like Pinky in the Brain. We all know that Pinky was smarter.
Yes. I was.
All right. This is where we come to the end. That was our coverage of Escape from New York from 1981. So this is the point in the podcast. Where can listeners hear you, Frank?
I am sometimes here on Adrenaline Cinemas, the cinema podcast. I'm also on Panels to Pixels sometimes.
Yep.
And I'm more often found on Fantasy Pix Movie Edition.
Yep.
And whenever someone asks me to be on a podcast, I pretty much just say yes. So
all my other fellow podcast hosts and out there, Frank will come on if you ask him. So keep that in mind. As always, you could hear me right here on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. As always, obviously, I created the podcast. I like to my friends like Frank, Jerry, and other people become hosts as well at times, especially if they have a love for what's going on. So think of that, take that into consideration as well, you listeners out there, because if you ask, hey, you may be able to be granted that option as well. But just gotta send me some feedback. But we will get that into when we talk about feedback. So you can hear me here on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast, as always, as well as Panels to Pixels Podcast. Right now with Panels, we're covering Gen V, which is on Amazon Prime, which is a kind of spin-off show for the boys, if you all remember that. And it's kind of the psychotic superheroes that are out there that love to get naughty sexually as well as bloody in the world where they kill people.
Yeah.
This show is just as equal to it as its parent, I should say.
That's one of the things on my list to be watched this weekend.
Yeah, we're already covering it. Rob and I already did the first episode this Saturday. Where Steve, Rob, and I will be covering the second, and then the following week we'll be doing episode 3. They only released the first 3 episodes. It's weekly, so obviously this is the first week. Like I said, we're covering this October 5th right now. So next week there'll be a brand new episode for that. But also the same date, Loki Season 2, Episode 1 launched, and I'll be watching that before I go to bed tonight. So we'll be covering that as well that day for Steve and Rob and I, or at least maybe a couple of days afterwards. But look forward to hearing our views on that. And you can hear me on Panels to Pixels Podcast as well, just like Frank Rodriguez here. You can hear me on Fantasy Picks Movie Edition as well on the Pirate Core Entertainment Network. So with that, we also like for everybody to check out the Pirate Core Entertainment website, which would be piratecoreentertainment.com. There, and you can listen to Fantasy Picks Movie Editions with their links on that particular website, where to get them from Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anything, or even the other media that they use. I'm not sure if Rob started with YouTube yet, but you could follow them on. You could follow them on like Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. All those links could be there, as well as the email. Same thing for this particular podcast, as well as Watched It in the 80s. So Damien's going to be coming back with that. That's going to be all stuff 80s based, as usual. So I look forward to hearing more of Damien and his content. For feedback, and like I said, I mentioned that earlier, we post everything. I've been posting a lot lately, a lot of images saying, hey, this is what you're looking forward to. Please leave it in the comments below. So all you have to do is go to our Facebook page, which would be facebook.com/Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. You'll see the image of what we're covering with the little logo of Adrenaline Cinema snuck in there somewhere. And I'll say, leave your comments below. Just leave them there down below. If you don't like that and you like Instagram better, guess what? We got an Instagram page for you. All you have to do is go to Instagram at Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. That's all you have to do is look for that. Just subscribe, check it out, look at it. You'll find the image. Just leave the comments below. And if that doesn't help you, you can always email us. Just email us. All you have to do is email us at adrenalincinemapodcast@gmail.com and just write out a texted email. Your thoughts. We'll read them. I didn't get anything recently, so that's fine. But if you feel like you don't want to be writing anything and you're like, I'm lazy. I'm like this too, because I actually do this to my friends. I actually record my voice. And then I sound terrible when I send in voice feedback lately. I found it so terrible recently for a friend of mine. So like, this is so boring. I like the episode. Okay, it sounded so boring, but that's who I am. With this, I'm a little bit more like myself. But recently, I just sent it out something for Run for Your Lives about Pet Cemetery, which they just covered recently. So at least that's a little bit more active in the writing when I sent the email in there. So you have options, people, options. But yeah, send that out. You can record your voice and send it as an attachment to the email address for Adrenaline Cinema Podcast at gmail.com. If there's a rating or review for the podcast on Apple Podcasts, please do so. I really would like that. We have a total of 5, actually 10, but 5 of them actually have some actual visual comments that are amazing that promote us, and I do like it. Send them in. They're also on Spotify. They have reviews as well. Whatever you could do would be helpful to the podcast and be really appreciated, as well as you telling a friend, because word of mouth actually helps out for anything when it comes to podcasting.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's about it in a nutshell. Even with those, like I said, with those for the feedback, you could easily say, hey, I want you to do this particular movie. Let us know. Give us a suggestion. Or if you're doing the suggestion, if you're interested in doing it, let me know. I have no problems with that. We have a lot more to come up, a lot more Halloween stuff coming up. Creature from Black Lagoon was already released. You'll have this one. This coming week, I'll be covering The Wolfman, Lon Chaney Jr. movie from the early days of Universal horror movies. So my friend Ben Elmore is going to be on with me. And look forward to Friday the 13th, the final chapter with Jamie Dimmick. So we'll be covering that and talking everything cool. Trying to get a little bit more out there because a lot of people know me. I love Halloween. So look forward to that. So with that, that is our show. And I want to thank everyone out there for listening. I'm Mark.
I'm Frank.
And this was Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. And we'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Have a good one, guys.